Premier League. Premier League. Yes. So let's round up the Premier League, right? Let's just round it up. And luckily now, I'm just going to round it up to you guys and just give you guys a short summary of what took place in some of the matches, right? I'll only go in depth with the important games, which was the Nottingham Forest and Liverpool game. That was and the Chelsea versus Brentford, when Chelsea traveled away to Brentford, right? Those are some of the important games that I will go into depth with, but let me just give you a roundup of all the other games that took place in the Premier League yesterday, right? So, the first one being between Everton and West Ham United at Goodison Park, right? So, it saw a dramatic situation whereby Thomas Souček as well as Edson Alvarez, they both scored in stoppage time, which resulted in the fact that West Ham were able to secure a dramatic 3-1 victory against Everton in the Premier League. Remember, Beto had given Everton the lead at Goodison Park, but, former Goodison boy, Goodison Park defender, the man who was there at Goodison Park, he was on loan from Chelsea at Goodison Park, Kurt Zuma. He's the one who scored the equalizer. And then we saw some late goals from Souček and Alvarez, which actually led to a change in the outcome of the game. And then elsewhere, we saw Fulham as well as Newcastle United winning by 3-0 against Brighton and Wolverhampton Wanderers respectively, which is so ironic because Brighton and Wolverhampton Wanderers they met in the FA Cup just about a fortnight ago. So now imagine they are being beaten 3-0. Two teams that were just playing against each other being whipped 3-0. So it's so dramatic. That's the Premier League for you, ladies and gentlemen. It's just dramatic, and what I can actually say is the fact that West Ham United, they pulled off a dramatic comeback against Everton. Winning by 3-0, 3-1, I meant to say, after 2 goals in stoppage time, because it looked like a situation whereby Everton were well on course to actually secure all 3 points. After Beto missed the penalty in a goalless first half, and we saw the Portuguese striker, he actually made amends by putting Everton ahead with the back post header in the 56th minute of the game. And then Kurt Zuma equalized, just 6 minutes later. And it looked like, basically, perhaps the points would be shared at Goodison Park, between both of these sides, right? Unfortunately, however, things change. This is Premier League football, ladies and gentlemen. It's Premier League football. You just can never predict. You have to just wait until the final whistle. That's just the Premier League for y'all, man. And it was actually Thomas Souček, who, his thunderous shot, a thunderous half volley, gave West Ham the lead, as the match entered, injury time, silencing the Goodison Park, faithful, before Mexican Edson Alvarez secured the victory in the 95th minute of the game. So basically, what does this result mean for West Ham United? West Ham United, they now rise up to 7th, in the Premier League table, while Everton, who have gone without a victory, since December the 16th, and their point deduction was reduced from 10 points to 6 points earlier in the week, are basically 5 points above the relegation zone in 16th. And elsewhere, we saw both Newcastle United as well as Fulham, they recorded comfortable 3-0 victories against Wolverhampton Wanderers as well as Brighton Hove Albion respectively. And, for a fact that Newcastle, it was basically their first home victory, in the Premier League since December the 16th with Alexander Isak, Anthony Gordon as well as Tina Livramento all on the score sheet. Isak finished off a counter-attack in 14th minute before Gordon capitalized on a mistake by Wolves goalkeeper Sarr to give Newcastle a 2-0, lead going into the second half. And Livramento wrapped up, the victory in stoppage time with his first goal for Newcastle, helping the team, to 8th in the table. Wolverhampton Wanderers, however, now, they fell, to 10th following that defeat. So that's the Premier League. You need consistency, man. Consistency is very important in the Premier League, Wolverhampton Wanderers. And as for Fulham, they're now equally at ease, against Brighton. Harry Wilson curled in at the opener in the 21st minute of the game before setting up Muniz for the second goal. And we saw Adama Traore then scored his first goal for Fulham in injury time, celebrating with the home fans at Craven Cottage. And Fulham, basically, they remain 12th, while Brighton, whose midweek UEFA Europa League tie against Roma, will actually be an important game in their season. They have now dropped to 9th position on the Premier League table. Liverpool secured a crucial 1-0 victory against Nottingham Forest to remain top of the Premier League table. And it was Darwin Núñez who scored a last grasp winner Tottenham came back against Crystal Palace to win 3-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Brentford, played to a 2-2 draw against Chelsea. So let's get into those games. I want us to talk about those games, ladies and gentlemen. Those are important games that we need to talk about. The last 3 games that I just mentioned to you. Right. So where do we start? I think we have to start at the City Ground between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. So Liverpool winning by a 1-0 against Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, they haven't had an easy week, but they have shown resilience. They've shown that they are a strong side. Remember, they just played against, Manchester United in the FA Cup 5th round. They only lost by a 0 at this very ground. And imagine now you play against Manchester United and Liverpool in back-to-back games in different competitions. At home, yes, but you only lose by a single goal. That does show that this team has got resilience. And you only concede late. You only lose by a late goal against 2 of English football's top sides. Give credit to Nottingham Forest. That's resilience. Nottingham Forest have shown that they are a resilient side. They've shown that they are a side that is not afraid to compete. They were just unlucky. Very unlucky. Because Darren Núñez netted a last grasp goal. As the Reds earn a vital victory in the title race. That's incredible. Incredible. That was basically a performance of a super sub by Darwin Núñez. He secured a thrilling stoppage time winner for Liverpool in what, could prove to be a vital day in the Premier League title race. With 9 minutes of added time, Núñez, he's popped up with a key goal to take Jurgen Klopp's side clear in the race. Before Manchester City and Arsenal, play later over the weekend. And now the Reds find themselves 4 points clear at the top of the table. Incredible. Incredible. That's just incredible. Darwin Núñez scoring a header in injury time. Same with Casemiro. Casemiro also scored a header in injury time. Just a fortnight ago in the FA Cup. Nottingham Forest, man, congrats, man. You guys are really a formidable side. You didn't deserve to lose, but that's just football, man. You guys, give yourselves credit. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Wow, man. Because that header 9 minutes into injury time. Actually seeing Liverpool grab victory over Nottingham Forest and keeping their title charge on course. That victory was scarcely deserved with the Reds, barely testing the Forest goalkeeper during the match. And like I said, give credit to Nottingham Forest. They were the better side. Even against Manchester United, they were the better side. Because in this particular game, Nottingham Forest had more clear-cut chances with Anthony Elanga spreading golden opportunities in either half. Elanga. Man. But yeah, after missing, the League Cup final, with injury, Núñez, the Uruguayan, he returned to the side, on the hour mark and made the crucial contribution, stretching backwards to actually flick a header to Alexis McAllister's cross. So basically it was a combination between the two South Americans, an Argentine to the Uruguayan. So basically this victory leaves Liverpool 4 points clear of Manchester City at the summit of the Premier League table. And ahead of Pep Guardiola's side's derby, with Manchester United on Sunday, Liverpool now continue to feel good. The fact they continue to feel good, with that more late tonic, goals that are being scored by them. It felt like, the feel-good factor after that dramatic League Cup victory. I mean, that was also late in the game as well, which only lasted into midweek with victory over Southampton, was coming into a spluttering end with Liverpool's, tepid performance today. Liverpool were nowhere near their best. The only time the Forest goalkeeper, Matt Sells, was actually called into action prior to the 99th minute, was when Núñez flick, from a corner hit the back of Murillo's head, before flying towards the target and forcing the Belgian stopper to actually save the ball brilliantly. Defeat was very harsh on Nottingham Forest once again, because they had the clearer chances at goal. And we saw the former Manchester United man, Anthony Elanga. He could not beat, Carmen Kelleher, when he was 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper in the first half, and then could not see an effort on target when clear at the back post after the break. And now this goes without saying that Liverpool will have to play better against Manchester City next week. but you could expect them to rise to the big occasion as they generally have in the Jurgen Klopp era. So it would not be a surprise if the German Supremo changed these forward options for the next match, with Luis Diaz, especially Cody Gakpo, particularly under par, and the introduction of Nunes and Jadon Danns noticeably, livening up the side in this particular encounter. And my man of the match for Liverpool, my man of the match in this particular encounter between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool had to be Ibrahima Konate. Because, Ibrahima Konate was solid for Liverpool. The Liverpool defense was called into action more than they would actually expect against a relegation struggler. And both the Red centre-backs did so well when left stretch as Forest ran beyond the opposition midfield. And, Konate, you look at his pairing with Virgil van Dijk, in covering the ground and strength. Liverpool kept a clean sheet, because, Konate's resilience and his strength at the back was very crucial for Liverpool in terms of them securing all 3 points, to actually go 4 points above Manchester City on the Premier League standings. What an important victory it was for them. Very important. But Elanga, should have done better, my boy. You really should have done better. Well, anyway, let's continue. Brentford 2, Chelsea 2. Chelsea. Yeah, it has been that season for them. Yeah, man, and they have Axel Disasi, to actually thank, because he's the one who actually struck late, as the Blues were able just to rescue a point at the G-Tech Community Stadium in the Premier League. And once again, Chelsea now remain in the bottom half of the Premier League table, despite actually striking late, to actually earn a 2-2 draw at Brentford. The Blues, they held a 1-0 lead at halftime thanks to Nicholas Jackson's effort. Basically that was his 11th goal in all competition for the Blues this season. And it was actually the Mads, Ruaslav, who actually equalized for the hosts 5 minutes after the restart. And the Congolese Juan Wisa's, stunning acrobatic volley, looked to have given the Bees a victory before Axel Disasi popped up with the late equalizer. So you wonder, what does this draw actually do for both sides? Because, yes, Chelsea have saved themselves from yet another defeat, to Brentford after a back and forth clash, at the G-Tech Community Stadium. And it ended in a 2-2 draw. And it looked as though Mauricio Pochettino, would suffer another setback as the game approached its end. With Chelsea losing 2-1, only for Axel Disasi to clinch an equalizer in the 84th minute of the game with a powerful header. And like I said, the point does very little for Chelsea. But it ends, Brentford's 3-match losing streak and puts a little bit more breathing space between themselves and the relegation zone, with just over 10 games remaining. And it was actually the visitors who struck first, after dominating most of the opening half. And Brentford were content, to actually set off the ball and wait for a counter-attacking opportunity. Chelsea had the lion's share of possession. However, they just couldn't find, the net, after Nicholas Jackson's header in the 35th minute. And Jackson should have netted another when he actually rounded the ball past goalkeeper Mark Flecken, only to take too many touches and allow for Matthias Jorgensen to actually clear, the striker's weak effort easily off the line. And again, man, those kind of chances, man, you have to take them. You just have to take those kind of chances because, Thomas's Frank sides, came out, a different beast in the second half. They scored twice through Mats Ruaslav as well as Juan Wisa in the 50th and 69th minute respectively. And they capitalized on Chelsea's defense, defensive frailties. Chelsea's defense really looked weak all game. And Chelsea, their defending has been very dismal throughout the season. The latter of which was a spectacularly acrobatic finish by the forward, rifling an overhead kick, past the helpless, Georgia Petrovic. And Brentford had sunk their teeth, into the match, and Chelsea, firmly, were on the back foot. From that particular moment in time, what we actually saw in this particular game is the fact that, by the point that the game had actually opened up and was becoming a combative Chelsea injected, combative. Chelsea were able to actually inject, some urgency and were rewarded in the 84th minute. It was like their first passage of attacking play for a long time in the game. And gave credit to Cole Palmer, who lifted across in for decisive to actually rise over the Brentford defenders and head in the equalizer. And from that particular moment in time, we saw Chelsea pressing for a winner, that winning goal. But, their attack, spearheaded by substitute Raheem Sterling, it just couldn't find their feet. And the referee called for time, after 5 minutes of stoppage time. So, yes, it is very important, but a single point does ensure that Chelsea, merely maintain their 11th spot in the league, and Brentford climbed, a single spot to 16th after a 3-1 loss, to West Ham. I'm saying Everton lost by 3-1, at West Ham at Goodison Park. So basically, yes, Brentford now climbed to 16th place, leapfrogging, the Merseysiders, and this is a valuable point for them, in their fight for relegation. And another talking point, to say the least, I would like us to talk about Nicholas Jackson. Basically, Nicholas Jackson, he's still far from a finished product, because Nicholas Jackson, yes, he has an incredible work rate, to say the least, and he has several immense attributes that a top-class striker could have, right, and should have, to say the least. But it has to be noted that the most important attribute is finishing, and it continues to elude the Senegalese striker at Chelsea. Because despite the fact that he grabbed his side's opener with a good header, his strikes were consistently weak, man, and not troubling, and it does cost the team big time, because Chelsea needed the 3 points at the G-Tech Community Stadium, man. The 3 points were very needed for Chelsea, because had they gotten the 3 points, we could have been talking a different story in terms of how now this actually changes their season, where they will be, in terms of the Premier League standings. And he undoubtedly should have doubled his team's lead, when he rounded the Brentford goalkeeper Mark Flecken, only to take too many touches, which was so unnecessary on the ball. And he allowed for the Brentford defenders to track back and clear off the line. And with just one goal in 11 minutes before Saturday's game, I'm saying Jackson only scored once in 11 matches before Saturday's game. And Chelsea, will no doubt have, their eye on a striker in the summer if Jackson can't find some consistency and accuracy in his finishing. Because I'm suggesting that Victor Osimhen is the player that Chelsea should be looking at. And Osimhen, yes, he seems well on track to be leaving, Napoli by the end of the season. So Chelsea need to look at him. They really need to look at him. And congratulations once again to Sergio, Regulion, for a great man of the match display. And yeah, he was the man of the match, because, the award could have just easily have gone to Juan Wissa, but the Spurs lonely grew into the game, and, he was at the heart of a lot of good things that Brentford did in the second half. And, including his deflective shot failing, falling to Mats Roslav, to actually score and put the host level, in the early moments of the second half. And the host managed to pin Chelsea's wing backs back into their own half, in the second 45 minutes. And the Spaniard was a menace for Ben Chilwell and equally kept him quiet in attack. So he could have and possibly should have, scored his side's winning goal with the header that actually hit the post in the second half. So this was an important victory. This is basically a victory, even if it's a draw, but it does more for Brentford than it actually does for Chelsea. It does more for Brentford. And the last game, that we witnessed at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we saw Tottenham winning by 3-1 in another London derby. Basically, it was North versus South, right? Crystal Palace hailing from the south side of London, and Tottenham Hotspur, we know they hail from the north side of London. So Tottenham winning by 3-1, thanks to goals by Timo Werner, Heung-min Son, as well as, those are the goals that actually helped Spurs to actually claim a comeback, over their local rivals, Crystal Palace. So Tottenham mounted a fine comeback, to actually claim a 3-1 victory over their local rivals, Crystal Palace on Saturday. So it was actually Eberici Eze who opened the scoring, with a great free kick before Timo Werner, Christian Romero, as well as Son Heung-min helped Spurs to a key result as they continue to chase down Aston Villa in the race for the UEFA Champions League football next season. It's getting heated right there at the top, and it's only a matter of consistency and making sure that you get those points, as many points as possible on the board. So Son was the man who actually completed and inspired Tottenham turnaround as they came from a goal behind to actually beat Crystal Palace by 3-1. Spurs trailed after Eberici Eze's delightful free kick, and they managed to strike 3 times in the final 13 minutes through Timo Werner, Christian Romero, as well as Son, sealed the victory that closes the gap on Premier League's top 4 to just 2 points. And back in action after a 2-week break, Ante, Postecoglou side dominated the first half. They actually had 80% of the ball, and they should have actually, taken an 18th minute lead when Werner was actually just denied by Sam Johnston, right? And however, it was actually Crystal Palace, that actually broke the deadlock, against the run of play just before the hour mark. And they did so in spectacular fashion too, and what a great goal it was by the returning Eze, whipping a delicious 25-yard free kick beyond, Vicario in the Spurs goal, Gigi Vicario in the Spurs goal. And nevertheless, Spurs, turned the match on its head with 2 goals in the space of 3 minutes. First it was Werner, who tucked away Brennan Johnson's, square pass before Romero nodded home a James Maddison cross. And Son, who hit the post earlier in the contest, put the icing on the cake just 2 minutes from time, racing away from the Palace defense, before, sliding the ball past Johnston, right? And what you could actually look at is the fact that, Spurs, at first they were at the top of the table. You would think that, this is their time. But we all know how it always happens with these teams that are not often fancied, but they have so much potential. It's just that they always struggle to keep it up. Because you look at Spurs, yes, their victory does help them maintain their dominance over Crystal Palace. And despite enjoying a whopping 78% of ball possession, Spurs headed into the final quarter of an hour looking like they may be beaten by Palace on home soil in the Premier League for the first time since November 1997, and their 37-match scoring streak was also under threat, but there was no stopping them once the equalizer went in. And they now keep up the pressure on the top 4 ahead of facing Aston Villa next week, in what could be a crucial game in terms of, UEFA Champions League qualification for next season. So Spurs now have made it 9 successive Premier League wins on home soil over Crystal Palace, who now they have just only lost once in 80 minutes against. And my man of the match goes to Brennan Johnson. Yes, he only entered action in the 63rd minute, but, Johnson, providing the missing ingredient for Tottenham, that they've been lacking despite their domination. Yeah, like I said, with Brennan Johnson, he was basically the missing ingredient that Tottenham had been lacking, despite their domination. And aside from, scoring himself, it was really a superb, sub-performance from the Wales international. And, for the first goal, he replaced, the rewards, for the resilience, in chasing Anderson down, and subsequently providing an incisive pass to Timo Werner to tuck home the equalizer. And you see with Johnson's persistence, was evident, again for the third goal, pressing Palace to actually prevent them from launching a bid for a dramatic equalizer. But his intervention put Son clean through to wrap up all points for Tottenham, and it was actually much needed 3 points for Spurs. So, yeah, man. Again, what's actually key of note is the fact that no player has scored more goals from outside the box in the Premier League, since the start of last season than Eberici Eze. Eze has now scored 5 goals from outside of the box, and no player has done that more than he has done that, So the Crystal Palace star player, man, what an incredible player he is. And you look at also James Maddison. Oh, what a gem, man. What a signing he has been for Tottenham this season. James Maddison, man. And his former club will be returning to the Premier League, I can tell you that. So James Maddison has provided an assist, at the Tottenham Hotspur for the first time, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the first time in a Spurs shirt. Each of his 6 previous, Premier League assists had all come away from home. So, wow. What an incredible player, man. What an incredible gem he is for Tottenham Hotspur. Right. So, starting with the Sunday games that we just recently witnessed. 1, Luton Town 2, Aston Villa 3. Wow, let's just get quickly into this one because I'm desperately, anticipating the Manchester derby and what's going to happen. We cannot underestimate Manchester United coming into this one. But look, let's start with Luton Town against Aston Villa at Kenilworth Road. What an incredible game of Premier League football there was because, Luca Dean is the one at the death. Who's the one who actually got all 3 points for Aston Villa. And remember what happened is that Aston Villa took the lead through Ollie Watkins. His brace actually helped, Villa lead, for most parts of the game. And basically that was just a roller coaster win for, Aston Villa. And you look at it, right? The substitute, Luca Dean, he's the one who struck the last minute winner. As Aston Villa now have bolstered their top 4 hopes, with the dramatic 3-2 victory, at Luton Town. After the struggling, Hatters, had threatened a sensational comeback. Unai Emery's villains, they had they were on path, to cruising, to a valuable 3 points. When Ollie Watkins, opened the scoring on 24 minutes, when he headed home from a right wing corner. And then from that particular moment in time, we saw the England international. He doubled, the sides. Now, basically, Ollie Watkins has got 16 league goals in the Premier League this season. So he doubled his side's lead, 7 minutes prior to the break. And when he slotted Douglas Luiz's quick free kick in and off the post, to actually snare his 16th league goal of the campaign. What he's been on sublime form, man. And we thought the game was done and dusted. At this particular moment in time, I thought the game was done and dusted. You understand? But this is Premier League football, ladies and gentlemen. It's Premier League football. Wait until the 45 minutes are completed. Luton Town responded in the second half and deservedly pulled one back. Guess what? Kenneth Kong bundled in from close range on 66 minutes. And then an unlikely comeback was sealed. Morris then guided a beauty of a volley into the far corner 6 minutes later to actually drag Rob Edwards' men level. I'm even speaking with the low-pitched tone. The way this game was so incredible. This game was so incredible. But however, the hosts, then suffered a late heartache, when Luca Dean, snuck in at the death to actually not home. His side stood, and which actually proved to be the winning result. We've been seeing some late goals of recent times. We saw 2 late goals in the game between Everton and West Ham United. We saw a late goal in the game between Brentford and Chelsea. We saw another late goal in the game between Tottenham Hotspur and Crystal Palace. We saw a last-minute late goal in the game between Nottingham Forest as well as Liverpool. So this weekend has just been a fairy tale of late goals. So now this result now sees Aston Villa consolidate their position in 4th spot. 5 points clear of 5th place Tottenham Hotspur, having just played a game more. And now Luton, they have failed to take advantage of earlier defeats for Everton as well as Nottingham Forest, and they basically remain 4 points adrift of safety in 18th place. So next up for Aston Villa is that they will be facing Ajax Amsterdam in the UEFA Europa Conference League on Thursday, and prior to hosting Tottenham Hotspur on Sunday. So Luton are at Crystal Palace next Saturday. What an incredible game of football that was. Incredible. And yeah, man, the much anticipated game of the weekend, obviously. We had to go straight to Manchester in the United Kingdom. The Manchester Derby. The Manchester Derby at the Etihad Stadium, right? Yeah, once again, as expected, Manchester City doing a double over Manchester United. As expected, to say the least. Last season it wasn't the case, but this season it is the case. Manchester City collecting 6 points of their bitter local rivals, Manchester United, in a 3-1 victory. come from behind. And that's the first time in the history of the Manchester derby that City were able to come from behind and actually win. Secure maximum points against Manchester United after coming from behind. So it was actually Phil Foden who netted twice as Manchester City came back from behind after Marcus Rashford put United ahead with a stunning strike. So it was actually 2 goals from Phil Foden. Erling Haaland finally getting his goal, which actually saw Manchester City come from behind to beat Manchester United by 3-1. So what does this result mean for Manchester City? It now means that now this victory for them, it moves them just 1 point off Liverpool in second place. So that's how it is, ladies and gentlemen. And I guess you could see from a Manchester United perspective, everything seemed to be going according to plan for them. I just think it was just those small margins of error. Which did cost them a lot. Another thing is that, yes, Phil Foden, I guess he's the best player currently on earth, right? Right now, currently he's the best player, man. He scored, not only did he score twice in the second half, and Manchester City, yes, he helped Manchester City come from behind to actually beat Manchester United by 3-1 at the Etihad Stadium. And let's get things started, right? So it was Marcus Rashford, with the thumping long shot, that gave, Erik ten Hag's team, an unlikely lead, in the Manchester derby. And Erling Haaland's shocking miss, from such, close range allowed United to actually retain their lead going into the halftime interval. Unfortunately, they just could not hold on. And from that particular moment in time, you would think that, okay, at 45 minutes to go, you understand, Manchester United have got this. They just need to hold on, you understand, and break on that counter-attack. However, it was just those small margins, because everything was going according to plan for Manchester United. In the first half, remember, Doku just did not offer Manchester City much going up front. He made some poor decisions, poor balls. Even Haaland didn't have a great first half as well. That's why you saw with the introduction of Julio Alvarez coming in the second half actually changed a whole lot for Manchester City. And Foden actually found a fantastic strike, It was witnessed with the fact that Foden found a fantastic strike of his own, before putting City ahead with the low finish. You'd expect Onana to actually do better from there. And Haaland finally found his goal in stoppage time, to fairer reflect his side's dominance and end Manchester United's run of 143 Premier League games without losing when leading at the break, So that's the first time in 143 games, Premier League games, where Manchester United have gone on to lose a game where they have led at halftime. And Ten Hag, however, he could actually point to a plan that did work for almost an hour. Yes, it's the same game plan that he applied at Anfield, and it did get him a result, So it did work to an extent, and this game plan was to say, let's score first and we defend. And Manchester, it seemed like everything was going according to plan for the Red Devils. But, marginal errors, those small errors did actually cost them, marginal decisions. And again, Manchester City were the worthy winners. It was about time where they would score. They would find the back of the net. You can't deny them forever. And now the victory extends their unbeaten run to 19 games. And now they move, to 1 point of Liverpool, who are the log leaders. And they will be playing next on Sunday, this coming Sunday. So it is going to get heated at the top of the table, right? And you look at how dramatic the derby was. Ten Hag, claimed that Rashford, could be unstoppable, right, when he at his best, and that was the only way to describe his strike to actually stun Manchester City early on. And Andre Onana's long ball was held up by Bruno Fernandes, who was played onside by Nathan Ake, and Rashford did the rest from that particular moment in time. So, number one, that was a solid game plan. Hitting the ball long, spreading the ball long, and actually playing onside, ensuring that you're onside, tracking those runs, making sure that you time those runs. And that's exactly what Bruno Fernandes did so well. That actually helped Manchester United take the lead. It gave them a sense of optimism that they could get an unlikely result at the Etihad. But, based on the way how from that point onwards, how, the game just went, the complexion of the game from that point onwards, it was all City. It was just all City. It was all City. Dominating, attacking, dominating, attacking, dominating, attacking, winning those second balls, dominating, attacking, winning those second balls. It was just City all from that point onwards. And you could tell that, you know what, Man City will get a goal. You could just tell. And yes, Rashford, he's got 6 goals in the Manchester derby. Wow, that's an incredible record for him. And on the part of Manchester City, it was a blistering, riposte, to those, who had criticized, his performance and gave Manchester United, a lead, something to cling on, going into the halftime interval. And which they did for the rest of the first half, as a wave after wave of Manchester City attacks, bore down on Onana's goal. And Guardiola's side, had 18 shots in the first half. And we did see some few terrible misses, Haaland being the one, but Haaland did exactly redeem himself, because his inexplicable miss, towards the end of the opening 45 minutes was the clearest chance, to equalize. And Foden's measured header, required the striker only to divert the ball into the vacant net from close range. But Haaland, continued to lift the ball over the bar. And let's just say it like that. We knew he was going to get. Erling Haaland, you can't judge him, right? Yes, he did contrive his effort over the bar, but you can't judge him. He's a striker, he's a human being. Sometimes it happens to the best players in the world. So he's human, ladies and gentlemen, he's human. And it just needed something more special to level up the game and more controversial too, because we saw Ten Hag, throwing his water bottle to the ground in disgust as he felt that Rashford, was fouled and that Manchester United should have been awarded a free kick, after a tug on his shoulder by Kyle Walker. And we saw, Ten Hag was fuming on the touchline. As we saw Foden got the equalizer, the much-needed equalizer that we did expect, for Manchester City. It has been coming, it has been beckoning, and look, let's just say it, man. Wow. Foden, what a brilliant player he is. It was a finish to match out, his England teammate at the other end. But unlike Rashford, who was substituted, with the score still level, Foden was not done for the day. Having moved to the left, he combined with Julian Alvarez to actually beat Onana, low to his left. And hey man, Foden is just a brilliant talent. He's remarkable. And mind you, he's only 22. So he's been there for long, but he's only 22. Phil Foden. And with that being said, United looked, bereft. You understand? Their game plan was gone. Even so, there was some anxiety when the board went up, showing 8 minutes of added time. Sofian Amrabat soon ended that, dispossessed by Rodri, who set up Haaland for that goal that eluded him. And what can I say, man? What can I say? It's just that Manchester United, even when you're coming to you playing against a team like Manchester City, right, away from home, at least show some urgency that you want to get back into the game, that at least you want to get a decent result. Don't just come to lose. Don't just come and play to lose. You did well by taking the lead, but why does it seem like you're playing to lose? You understand? Because Manchester United did not show any sense of urgency whatsoever in terms of wanting to get back into the game. They did not. And you look at this victory in the derby for Manchester City. The fact that Manchester City, it was the first time, that it was like the first time that Manchester City had ever come from a goal behind to beat Manchester United in a Premier League match. So they had lost all previous of, their 15 games in a row that they had trailed against Manchester United in the league before this particular encounter. Manchester United lost the Premier League game in which they led at halftime for the first time since September 2014 against Leicester, which was a 5-3 win for Leicester at the King Power Stadium, ending their run of 143 unbeaten games, when ahead at the break in the competition since then. And Manchester City fired in 18 shots in the first half of this game, and that was their joint most that Manchester United have faced, you understand, since the 2003-2004 season. Phil Foden has now scored 18 goals in all competitions for Manchester City this season, and his most ever in a single campaign, surpassing the 16 he netted in the 2020-21 season. And Manchester United have attempted just 3 shots in this game, only 1 shot on record, right, from 2003-2004, and this is the fewest that they've had in a single Premier League game. Remember, they only had 2 against Liverpool in April 2022. So, very bad. Manchester United, not a convincing performance from them once again. Very unconvincing. Yeah, so the next Premier League game that we will be seeing tonight, right, is obviously title contenders, Arsenal. They will be traveling to Sheffield United tonight, right, at Bramall Lane. They will be meeting, and I want us to get straight into the discussions with regards to that game. So, both teams need 3 points. Yeah, both teams need 3 points. They definitely and desperately need the 3 points if they are to keep their season, going, if they are to achieve their objectives for the season. Sheffield United do want to stay up, maintain their grip, in terms of securing Premier League football next season, avoid relegation. As for Arsenal, I'm sure they want to contend for the league. They want the league title after losing out last season to Manchester City once again. They definitely want to make up for last season. So, you understand, both teams need all the 3 points if they are, to achieve their aspiring objectives for the season, right? So, let's get straight into it. You look at Sheffield United, right? So, a Sheffield United team, that is like, conceding at an alarming rate, right, at Bramall Lane. Now they will be hosting Arsenal, an Arsenal outfit that is actually scoring, for fun. Arsenal are basically finding the back of the net for fun away from home, in a Monday Premier League fixture, right? It's a Monday night, and Monday night football is so, emphatic. It's so fun. It's so enthusiastic. It's so, It has got everything that you want from a game of football, a game of Premier League football. It has got everything. We've seen on so many Monday night clashes how there's been so much emphatic football being played. So the Blades, they remain in the relegation favourites, owing to last week's 1-0 defeat to Wolverhampton Wanderers, whereas the Gunners are still embroiled in the title scrap thanks to a 4-1 crashing victory over Newcastle United at the Emirates Stadium. And with the home advantage, the home advantage phenomenon has actually eluded Sheffield United, at their Bramall Lane base, right? But we see with Chris Wilder, and co welcomed a trip to a rival territory for last weekend's battle with Gary O'Neill's Wolves, who failed to display much of an attacking bite throughout the Molineux, matchup. And Jose Sa and his defenders had to be called upon, on several occasions to keep the Blades out. But despite, a vastly improved, showing, Wilder's basement boys, still traveled, home empty-handed as Pablo Sarabia, headed in the only goal of the contest, on the half-hour mark. And from that particular moment in time, we saw Wilder, he may have been able to reflect on some encouraging signs, in the West Midlands. But Sheffield United's 20 placed ranking, in the table as far less, encouraging. And the Blades are still clutching onto, a one-way ticket back down to the championship as they sit 11 points behind Nottingham Forest in 17th spot. So with that being said, while the hosts are yet to even lose by more than one goal on the road in 2024, they have forgotten to bolt the Bramall Lane back doors, shut in the recent weeks, and are now on the verge of 2 unwanted English football firsts, following a demoralizing defeat to Aston Villa by 5-0, losing to Brighton Hove Albion by 5-2. So, and as well as losing 5-0 to the same opponents. And should Sheffield United lose, by at least, a 5-goal margin to Arsenal, they would become the first team in English, Premier League history to ever lose 3 successive home games by that particular scoreline, while also holding the unwanted honor of being the only team in the land to ever ship 5 goals in 4 straight home matches in all tournaments. That's just incredible. An incredible unwanted record, to say the least. As Sheffield United, bid to actually avoid writing an unwanted page of English football history, their upcoming visitors have a more desirable record in their sight of, account of their 6-0 battering of West Ham United at the London Stadium and a 5-0 demolition of Burnley, in their last 2 Premier League away affairs, basically scoring 11 times. And they're basically aiming to become the first team in the top 4 English divisions to actually win 3 consecutive away games by 5 goals or more. And Arsenal's attacking supremacy on the road evaporated in their 1-0, reverse defeat to Porto in the UEFA Champions League, but they have shined, their best shooting boots for last weekend's visit of Newcastle United at, in the Emirates. We saw goals from Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, Jakub Kiyowo alongside a Sven Botman own goal. Did see the Gunners, secure revenge, for their excruciating, and a controversial 1-0 loss at St. James's Park early in the season. And while also keeping them on the final podium spot, in the Premier League rankings, the gap between Liverpool as well as Arsenal, stands at just 4 points by virtue of the Reds' last grasped 1-0 victory against Nottingham Forest on Saturday, and not that like Mikel Arteta's troops, will be casting their eyes over the table as they seek a 7th Premier League win on the spin and a 4th on the chart, versus Sheffield United. And once again, the Gunners subjected Wilder's men to a 5-0 slaughter at the Emirates Stadium back in October, and their 2 encounters at Bramall Lane since the first COVID-19 lockdown saw Arsenal run out 2-1 victors, in the 2019-2020 FA Cup quarterfinals before resounding, at 3-0 top flight success in April 2021. So you look at the recent form between both of these sides, right? There's a huge level of contrast, to say the least. So you look at Sheffield United's Premier League form, right? They've only won 1 game in their last 6. Okay? And you look at in all competitions, they've only won 1 game in all competitions in their last 6 games in all competitions. So things are not looking good for Sheffield United, As for Arsenal, their Premier League game has been fantastic. They've won all their games. They've won their last 6 games, so they preserve 100% record coming into this one, and they look to extend on that one. They've only lost 1 game in all competitions, right? That Champions League defeat, to FC Porto in Portugal just about a week or 2 ago in the UEFA Champions League first leg round of 16, and they will be looking to, reverse that in the return tie at the Emirates Stadium in about the next week or so. So, it is an important game for Mikel Arteta's side if they are to challenge for the Premier League title. Well, hey, I don't want to lie to you guys, man. I just don't want to lie to you guys. I don't want to deceive you all at home, but I just did not expect that Arsenal will still be well in contention of, clinching a Premier League title for the first time in 20 years. Look, they've just broken records again. Both Sheffield United as well as Arsenal, they've broken records for good and wrong reasons. Yeah, for good and wrong reasons. So basically the Gunners, they put the blades to the sword, with another big win to actually just move off, 2 points, off the top of the Premier League. And Arsenal, literally, they smashed, Sheffield United 6-0. The Gunners were 5 ahead at halftime with 5 goals by Martin Odegaard, Jayden Bogle's own goal, Gabriel Martinelli, Kai Havertz, as well as Declan Rice, and Ben White got in the act, in the second half. So basically, that's just the way it went, because now Arsenal have added, Sheffield United to their list of trash teams as the Gunners literally beat, Chris Wilder's side by 6-0. To actually move back within touching distance of title rivals Liverpool and Manchester City at the top of the table. And remember Arsenal, they beat West Ham by 6-0, and they beat Burnley by 5-0 in their most recent away games. And the Gunners now have found themselves 5 up at halftime thanks to goals from Martin Odegaard, Jayden Bogle's own goal, Gabriel Martinelli, as well as Kai Havertz and Declan Rice. So basically the Gunners have now scored 16 goals. They've scored 16 goals in their last 3 away games in the Premier League. That's just incredible. Sheffield United's display, was just a disgrace, and it was just one of the most cited football games that you can ever witness, because imagine playing at home and you go into the break, you're 5-0 down and you're still fighting for relegation. And that's the time where you're supposed to really put up a fight. The fight, you need to give your best performance ever. And there was actually more joy for Arsenal. We saw Thomas Partey, Gabriel Jesus, and Fabio Vieira, made their returns from injury to add to the Gunners' depth. But they did lose Gabriel Martinelli to a worrying, second half injury. but it really did not affect them that much, because the Gunners now, who have now scored, they've now scored like 31 goals in their last 7, Premier League games. And for that fact, they know that, they can go top of the Premier League if they beat Brentford, next weekend on Saturday at the Emirates, right? And remember, rivals, their fellow title contenders, Liverpool and Manchester City, will be playing each other the following day on a Super Sunday clash. So, what can I say, man? The Sheffield United, right? Their fans, you could see even their fans left Bramall Lane, just after Arsenal's third goal, in the 15th minute. It just reminds me of that game between West Ham United and Arsenal, at the London Stadium. Just at halftime, we saw so many West Ham United fans were just departing the stadium. And basically, Sheffield United now remain 11 points from safety, with just 11 games remaining. And they're basically stuck with a goal difference of minus 50, having conceded 72 goals in 27 Premier League matches this season. So, yeah, man, I guess the Blades, their fate perhaps could be sealed in the next 2 or 3 games or so, because it has actually been a painful season for them. And, you can see they are damaged. The players are so damaged. We even saw with yesterday's performance against the Gunners. It's a performance of a team that is actually lacking so much confidence. And it has been a painful season for them, And no doubt, it will actually be a long season. And hopefully they can learn a few lessons, because they definitely go into the championship, after this performance. I don't see any way back for them, because right now, they have to take the responsibility, and they themselves as well as the coach have to take the responsibility. And, we'll see what will actually happen, what they will be able to conjure up in the last 10 or 11 remaining games. Because you look at the young guns, the likes of Oli, Ablasta, Andre Brooks, as well as Hill Osula, maybe they are the ones that could take, Sheffield United forward, and, the coach has got some big decisions to actually make, he does. But, nevertheless, you just got to give credit to Arsenal, because 6 of the best from the Gunners, really sealed the fate of Sheffield United, right? And, basically, you look at the fact that coming into this game, Sheffield United were given a stern warning just after 75 seconds when Saka struck the post, and Jack Robinson had to clear the rebound off the line, but from Martinelli's close range strike. And from that particular moment in time, what we could actually say is that, Sheffield United, they started the game with Tom Davis in the midfield for the first time, in place of Yasser Lurochi, while Oli McBurney replaced Ryan Brewster up front. And we saw George Baldock and Ben Brereton. Diaz returned from injury but were named on the bench. And then Arsenal were unchanged from the team that beat Newcastle by 4-1, at the Emirates just about a week ago. And Thomas Partey returned to the Matchday squad as a substitute for the first time since October. Remember, Thomas Partey did miss out on the AFCON, at the African Cup of Nations for, the Black Stars of Ghana, who were knocked out in the group stages after just only accumulating 2 points. And we saw 3 minutes later, the Blades, I'm referring to Sheffield United, they were not let off the hook very easily. We saw Jorginho fed Rice on the left byline, and he actually was able to cut the ball to Odegaard, who had, an easy finish in an empty net. And from that particular moment in time, we saw, the Arsenal captain was so close to a second goal as he angled a shot from the Gunners, but their second, soon was enough, as Saka burst through Austin Trusty far too easily down the right, and his low cross was put, in his net by a clumsy Bogle. Sheffield United, their defending has been very poor this season. I must be honest. Their defending has been very woeful this season. I just don't understand. The way, Saka was just given space, so much space, and the way he was able just to burst past, Trusty so easily. That was just, it just sums up their season. It just says everything, because you can't let Saka just, move past you, burst past you like that. You know how dangerous he is. You know how effective he is for Arsenal. And you know that he's one of the players that can actually give you some problems. But now, if you're going to let him burst past you just like that, and actually playing a great cross into the box, and then you're gonna, clumsily, boggle the name into your own net, boggle the ball into your own net just like that. It says a lot about the defending. It has been very woeful. And I guess, the season, it just sums up their season, because currently now Arsenal as well, they even made it 3-0 almost instantly. We saw Rice won the ball high up the field, and he actually, he fed Jakub, Kiowa on the overlap, and the Polish defender pulled the ball back to Martinelli, whose shot was actually deflected and flew into the back of the net, literally. So that was Arsenal's third goal, scored by the brilliant Brazilian. And from that particular moment in time, I couldn't blame them, rightfully so. We saw the Sheffield United fans literally going for the exit. Manager Wilder made a switch, bring on Oliver Norwood, as well as putting in Ben Osborne as an extra defender against the rampaging Saka. But Arsenal's left-hand side continued to fire as they made it 4. And then Martinelli picked up, Ahmed Dozic's pocket deep in the Blades half and fed Havertz in the box, who had a simple finish in the far corner. So basically that has been his season. I'm talking about Kai Havertz. Because Kai Havertz has just been scoring easy goals, right? Since he joined the Gunners, this season. And he has been very effective for them. He has been, a brilliant signing for them, but he has just been scoring easy goals. I don't think he has actually been, I don't even think that he has, he has been required to actually do a lot, right? Because you look at how many goals, the amount of goals that he has been able to score, right, for Arsenal. It's like, basically what can I say? It's like, it's easy. Most of the time it's tap-ins. Most of the times it's just like one-on-ones with the goalkeeper. Remember the goal that he did score against Luton, the goal that he scored against Bournemouth. It's just like simple goals, right? So, but he has been effective for the team. He has really been, his contribution, you can never underlie it. You can never underestimate his contribution. And then there's Saka, who returned down the right, for number 5, as he linked past substitute, Osborne to actually find an unmarked Rice in the box, who swept home with ease. Yeah, man, Saka, that was basically his last bit of action. He was taken off at halftime, for the returning Vieira. Rightfully so. Sometimes when you are in control of the game, just rest some of your best players, man. Yeah, because Saka is needed, in the next upcoming games, especially in the Champions League, second leg against Porto at the Emirates, where Arsenal are trailing. So it just goes back to that, and remember the Gunners, they continued their ventures forward. It didn't really change much in the second half, because Rice's free kick, they could have added more, 6 or 7 or 8 goals. Rice's free kick was saved by the goalkeeper, Ivo Gribic, at the near post, while Martinelli put an effort wide. And Arsenal's 6th goal, fell to Ben White as the defender picked up, Havertz's nice takedown and, pass in the box to actually riffle home with his left foot. And then we saw Kiowa tried to join him on the score sheet, but his close range header late on was all wrong. And Jesus' late finish after coming off the bench. So basically, Arsenal, they were still in the mood. They could have scored like 10 in this particular encounter. But yeah, man, I'm sure they were just feeling sorry for their opponents. They didn't want to inflict more on their misery. And despite actually seeing Martinelli hobble off, late on in the game, it was actually a perfect, round-breaking night, to remember for the Gunners, And what can I say, man? Arsenal from this point onwards, they just got to keep it up. They cannot afford to drop any more points, to say the least. And yeah, man, you look at this particular encounter, the records that were set. Arsenal now basically have become the first team in the Premier League history to actually score at least 5 goals in 3 consecutive away games. And this was their first time, since Arsenal have been, 5 goals ahead in the halftime in a Premier League game. Arsenal went 5 goals ahead of Sheffield United by the 39th minute, which is the earliest an away side has had a 5-goal margin in the Premier League history. Arsenal matched their biggest ever Premier League win just 4 weeks ago after breaking that record against West Ham United on, the 11th of February. Sheffield United are the first side in English football, and that's exactly what I mentioned before the game. That's exactly what I mentioned. So Sheffield United are the first team in English football to concede more than 5 goals in 4 successive home games in all competition, and they are the first side in English League football to lose 3 consecutive home games by at least a 5-goal margin. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, and basically now this is the fourth time, this season that Sheffield United have lost a home game by at least 5 goals, becoming the first side in the top flight season to do so. And Jaden Bogle's own goal was the fifth time Sheffield United have put the ball, through their own net, in the Premier League this season, more than any other side in the competition in the 2023-2024 season. And Brighton, Aston Villa, and now Arsenal have scored more than Premier League goals at Bramall Lane in 2024 than Sheffield United. Imagine your opponent score more Premier League goals than you at your own stadium. It's insane. It's just insane. Because now Sheffield United have only scored 4 times this year. In 2024, they've only been able to score 4 times at Bramall Lane. And now Arsenal, Aston Villa, and Brighton have scored more times than they have at their own stadium in front of their fans. It's oh my goodness, no. And currently now, like Arsenal, what's next for them is that it's a London derby. They'll have to turn their attention for a London derby against Brentford, at the Emirates Stadium. And then Liverpool, will be taking on Manchester City, the following day. And Sheffield United have got 2, league games to end the month of March. They will be hosting Bournemouth next week, Saturday. And they will be welcoming Fulham to Bramall Lane on March the 30th.